You're now listening to the Boys in the Booth podcast with your hosts, Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. New episodes every Monday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Good evening and welcome to episode 126 of the Boys in the Booth podcast. Cody, Abrams, and Melbourne, all three with you. And guys, what a treat the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs was. As we move on to round two, we've got a night off from games and it all starts back up again on Tuesday night. So we're going to tee up the four remaining matchups, the 8 teams that remain in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But first of all, I ask how you guys are doing on this Monday evening.
And I have been busy. It has been a crazy last 10 days for me, starting my last Friday in Creedmoor, and then Saturday at Chad's, Sunday at Chad's, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Restaurants Canada show in Toronto, and then driving to Brockville, working in Brockville for a day, and then driving to Ottawa for a concert. We all saw Shaky Graves, which is my favorite artist, and if you've never heard of him, you just got to look up his Audio Tree session on YouTube, and you'll have your mind blown. But that was a friggin' awesome concert, and we had so much fun. Then we went to just an absolute trash bar after, had some more fun there, and finished it off Saturday at the Keystorm in Brockville watching the Leafs Tampa game. Chad, what the fuck are you wearing?
I was waiting for someone to say it. Harp didn't even bat an eye. He's like, oh, this is a normal attire for a Monday night. Guys, it's vacation time for me. The Leafs are out, and, you know, as they say, if you can't beat them, join them. So I'm heading down to Florida tomorrow morning, and maybe I'll be able to see an NHL playoff game not involving the Maple Leafs, because once again they didn't make it to the second round. So maybe I'll be able to catch a Tampa Florida game. But that's what's going on with the get up here, guys. I'm in vacation mode, ready to send it down to Florida and watch some true hockey down there, perhaps.
Yeah, there's one thing I quickly wanted to do. I wanted to say maybe a couple words or a little here.
This sounds like a eulogy.
All right, I'll cut that off quick.
Copyright case.
Copyright strikes coming in hot. I just wanted to pour one out for all my dead Leafs fan homies who have given up on the team and no longer want to be a Leafs fan. Honestly, I was rooting for them this year. There's a lot of people that I like seeing suffer that are Leafs fans, mostly people around my age that really suck and are wearing a sun hat right now. But man, I wanted to see them win for the dads, for all my friends' dads that I know that have just been dying for the last, their whole lives, honestly. Like, not too many of them were big fans when they won their last cup, but, you know, just thinking about guys like Reese Barrett's dad, Kurt, just probably screaming at the TV at home, and then now has to switch to watch the Blue Jays suck for a little bit. It's like, I feel for those guys. I really do. And I was hoping Toronto was going to win, but also at the same time, I was kind of cheering when Tampa would score too. So I was just glad it was good hockey and both teams had fun.
I'll say this, Hart, before you jump back in here. Obviously, this episode, we're going to be predicting the second round matchups here. So we've got 4 matchups we're going to talk about. Along the way, I'm sure we'll be able to sprinkle in some stuff about the first round. But we're not going to kind of go through it, you know, because we talked about these teams already a bunch. We all saw the series. We know how it played out. So we want to get our predictions out. And along the way, we'll talk about what happened in the first round as well, a bit less formally. Also, though, I do want to say in the next week or two, I know some people are probably dying to hear my take on the Maple Leafs, because obviously I'm the biggest clown fan for the Leafs anyone knows who listens to the podcast. So I'm going to do that in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to put out an episode, a Let Us Explain episode, a nice long one where we just focus on the Maple Leafs. So that's just so I don't take up all the airtime for us three to talk about our predictions and get everything in. And so I'll be doing that in the next week or so. And yeah, should be a good time.
Yeah, look forward to that. And, Case, you mentioned all the dads out there that are Leaf fans. Well, you guys know my dad very well and how big of a Leafs fan he is. And but honestly, I was more into the game than he was on Saturday night. He just kind of said afterwards, I'm used to this by now, which sucks to hear. And, was really hoping that they would win for him. I was really into the game. Like, I was acting like a full-on Toronto Maple Leafs fan on Saturday night, wanting them to win that Game 7. And just the atmosphere, the crowd in Toronto, it would have been incredible to be there for all of it. But, it's another year with this core where they're out early. And Chad, like you alluded to, looking forward to kind of getting your take in a separate episode in the next week or so. So anyway, really too bad, but you know what? We get the Battle of Florida. That's going to be excellent. The Battle of Alberta, and really all 4 matchups are going to be great for the second round. So let's get into it.
How did you guys do in the first round, by the way, just out of 8?
6 for 8, and I had, I think, three of the matchups 100% based off games and who won.
Nice. Harp, did you tally it up as well?
Yeah, 6 for 8 for me. Minnesota and Toronto were the victims for me, the teams that I picked that, things just didn't work out for them. And then obviously my games were off. I mean, a couple of games that you picked that, you thought were going to go to 5 games, but, didn't think that we'd have more closer series. All good, all things considered. And the 2 teams that I've got in the Stanley Cup Finals are still going and I think have a good chance to go deep still and all of that. So yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, I went 5 for 8. So I was a bit worse than you two guys. My one thing that I wish I didn't reverse was my New York Rangers pick. I just hated them against the Penguins. If the Pens got good goaltending, they didn't, and Shesterkin stole the show once again. That's why I didn't post our NHL.com brackets, because in my bracket, I originally picked the Rangers, but then on the podcast, I made a last-minute switch and picked the Penguins. I was going back and forth, went to Game 7 overtime. Either one would have been a good pick. But so I kind of regret not trusting my gut there and trying to go all in on the Penguins again. But, what are you going to do if Louis Domingue is your starter? Or if you get Jari back, you still got a broken foot. But yeah, so the Toronto-Tampa one, the Boston-Carolina one, and the Pittsburgh-New York Ranger one, for me, were all wrong. But in those series, I said 7 games. They all went to 7. It just didn't go the way I wanted. So looking forward to hopefully being a bit better here for my second round predictions. But again, who knows? It's playoff hockey, right? So.
Yeah, again, just what a weekend to finish the first round. 5 Game 7s, 2 of them on Sunday night. Both went to OT. Just absolutely incredible first round of NHL playoff hockey, and it's only going to get better from here, I think. So, all right, let's tee up the second round. We'll go east to west, and we'll start with the first matchup in the east. The Carolina Hurricanes defeated the Boston Bruins in 7 games against the New York Rangers, who took out the Pittsburgh Penguins in 7. Guys, I've got Carolina taking this series in 6 games. Thoughts on this one? Hurricanes and the Rangers should be a good one.
This round's going to be a little bit easier for me to watch, just because there's really only 2 series that I'm super duper interested in this round, and one's in the East and one's in the West. This series is not one of those. I am not very into watching the Rangers and Carolina play. It's not an interesting matchup. There's not a rivalry there. I don't know. It'll be good because they're both young, talented teams, obviously. But I've got a hard time picking in this one. Honestly, do either of you guys know Freddie Anderson's situation?
I don't. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if anyone knows right now. It seems like Ranta's been the guy. So.
Yeah. So, that's one of the fears I have of Carolina. It seems like when you get in these situations with 2 goaltenders and having to make a choice, everyone's making the wrong choice so far. We saw that maybe in Minnesota, but that's one thing I do like about the Rangers is Igor's their guy. he's good. He had, maybe 2 games that he would like back, but the guy also saw like 85 shots in the first game. Like, I think, maybe he's a little tired. So I got to base this on my original bracket, I think. And because of that, I'm going to go with Carolina in 7 games because Carolina took down Boston. I did not expect that to happen. So given the fact that they beat Boston and how they did it, it was just strong at home. They're so good at home, and they're the higher seed here, so they're going to get that home matchup. I think Carolina is going to get it in 7. The Rangers are going to put up a fight. Igor is going to stand on his head, but yeah, ultimately Carolina in 7.
Yeah, guys, this is actually the most lopsided series according to Money Puck right now. They've got Carolina winning at 79%. I think that's crazy. I don't know how you even slap a number on that, but their model, that's what it spit out, 79% for Carolina here. I think it's a lot closer than that, but at the same time, I'm going to have to agree with you here, Case. I'm going Carolina in 7 games. They're the better team, top to bottom, except for their goalie. And that's going to be obviously the whole story. If Igor can steal a game or 2 or 3 or 4, which he might have to in this series if they're going to win, then, I could see that happening because he's really that good. He had those 2 games where he got absolutely shelled, and he's still ranked in the top 4 goalies right now and goals saved above expected because in his last game, he faced a ridiculous amount of shots and was just incredible. And then obviously the earlier game in the series where he was fantastic as well. So it's I think it'll come down to 7 for that reason alone.
I think that we need to come up with a new name for goals saved above expected because it's a mouthful and we say it a lot on this podcast. There is another advanced analytic called the Fenwick. So I'm thinking maybe we switch it and call it the Chadwick because you love to say it so much. Yeah. So if we say the Chadwick, we're talking goals saved above expected.
Yeah, I don't like the Fenwick stat, though. I prefer Corsi for and Corsi against.
Well, Fenwick's kind of stupid. But
yeah, Fenwick.
It's just the name.
Yeah, Fenwick's a cool name anyway. But yeah, guys, I look at this forward group, and Carolina's way deeper. I look at their defense group. Carolina's just way better. And then, like I said, goaltending, it's Igor. Like, he's been one of the best goalies in the playoffs. He was the best goalie in the regular season. So it's going to come down to that. The reason I'm picking Carolina, and because I don't think Igor will be able to do it again, the reason I'm picking Carolina is that, New York isn't going to have to play a third string goalie this time around. And that really was the difference for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh dominated New York every single game. And if you look at the deserve to win-o-meter that counts your chances and expected goals for and against, Pittsburgh was in the positive every single game by a landslide. The difference was they had a phenomenal goalie at one end and a borderline AHL starter in the other. No offense to Louis Domingue, but he's not who Tristan Jarry was at the start of the year when he came out extremely hot, and he's not even a Casey DeSmith who is league average. All 3 of their goalies were below average in the playoffs this series who played, and it's so tough if that's what you're getting between the pipes. So I think New York has a legit shot because they have a all-world beating goalie, but I can't go against Carolina here. I just think they're better top to bottom.
Yeah. Speaking of things that need a better name, deserve to win-o-meter sucks.
I like it.
One thing I will say about the Rangers defense is I've been loving Miller's game. Kind of keeping my eye on him every time I'm watching the Rags play, and he has been logging a lot of minutes. They had him up with Fox for a little bit. So I think he's back down in the second pair now, but he logs minutes and is tough to play against. Hard nose player, and he can jump in on the rush anytime. So been loving his game, but yeah, Chad, the decor at Carolina, we've talked about that enough, like for the last 5 years. It's sick. So I'm taking that matchup, and I love the point of like kind of I'm not going to call it an easy first round because they had a 94% chance of losing after going down 3-1.
Yeah.
But playing Lou Domingue, that, I think Carolina, all 3 of Carolina's goalies are better than Louis Domingue. So
I agree.
A lot of ex-New York Rangers on the Hurricanes too, so this will be an interesting series, and it feels like these two teams always meet up in the playoffs. This time it's in the second round, and we've got a clean sweep. All the boys taking Carolina in this series. Let's move on to the Battle of Florida. We had this in round one last year, and now we get it in round two. The Tampa Bay Lightning, of course, defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champs, taking out the Toronto Maple Leafs in 7 games, against the Florida Panthers, defeating the Washington Capitals in 6 games. And it wasn't that easy for the Panthers to do, but they get it done. Carter Verhaeghe, what a playoffs for him so far, gets the overtime winner in Game 6 in Washington, and the Panthers win their first playoff series for the first time since 1996. This series was excellent last year, guys, Battle of Florida, and we get it for the second year in a row. Who are we taking? I've got, just given the way my original bracket looked, I've got the Florida Panthers in 7 games.
Yeah, this series, I will have my eyes glued to at all times because it was so good last year. And Florida first place team, Tampa probably with Toronto at the top of the best teams in the league this year, in my opinion. So, and a lot of people's opinion, obviously. So it's going to be a great series. A lot of hate there. We love hate. We love it.
We do.
In the playoffs of hockey.
We do.
Let me clarify that. I had a hard time looking at this series and trying to pick a winner. It's so hard to go against Tampa at all times, but I do have Florida in the Stanley Cup Finals, so obviously I'm going to lean that way. Plus, I got to look at last series, and Tampa Bay, I think Toronto was the better team 70% of the time in that last series. It's just not the way things shook out for them. And Tampa, it seemed like at times they weren't completely into the game. There's a couple guys that were struggling. Like Kucherov's a 50-50 player with me. Either he's on or he is off. And there's been a lot of that so far this series. Plus the comebacks. They have let Toronto back into games multiple times. And who are they playing right now? The comeback Cats. So I don't think they can put themselves in that position in this series. Plus Florida, home ice advantage. I'm taking Florida, and I'm actually going to do it in 6 games.
Damn. Okay, so I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be the guy to do it then and say Tampa Bay is going to take this series and perhaps even three-peat, guys. I think they looked extremely good against the Leafs, and 5-on-5, I think it was a wash. I think the Leafs were a bit better 5-on-5 depending on what stats you look at, but special teams, when it came to that, they were so good in that first round series against the Leafs. So if I'm looking at this series, first of all, you guys said it, like the Battle of Florida, we saw it last year. It's incredible. I think this will probably be the best series of the playoffs, unless somehow Tampa and Colorado meet in the finals. Like, that would be amazing to see. But I think this could be the best series we see in the playoffs. And it sucks that, again, one of these two teams has to go home. The back-to-back defending Stanley Cup champions and the President's Trophy winners, first and third in the Atlantic Division. One of them has to go home, and you hate to see it, but I'm going to say it's going to be Florida, and that's going against what the betting odds say. That's going against what Money Puck's probability says. They've got 63% that Florida wins the series, but guys, I just think there's something intangible that Tampa has. I think, they're a team who gets it done no matter what, even if they may not be the best team on the ice in that given game, but they're just able to do it and close out series. And especially when you've got one of the best goalies in the NHL over the last 5 years between the pipes, and that he can just switch it on like that, like he did in Game 7 against the Maple Leafs. Like, it's really scary to me. So I'm gonna go Tampa Bay in 6 games because I think they had their scare in the first round. And I think they're just gonna cruise right now. And at the same time, though, the reason I'm picking Tampa Bay as well is because Florida kind of sketched me out in the first round. Not gonna lie, like they ended up closing out the series, quite neatly and properly, which it was good to see them get back on track. But, Washington kind of took it to them a couple times, and it just seemed like there was something wrong in Florida. And I talked about this last episode with you, Harp. Like, I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. Something just seemed out of sync. Maybe it was a chemistry issue, but because, they're a fantastic team. I just think that, if I look at these two teams on paper, on the ice, regular season, playoffs, I think I'm taking Tampa every single time.
I'll tell you what the thing was off with Florida. It's the same thing as the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's like 80% mental. They know that they have this first round gap that they have to get over. And obviously they had that in their mind and they struggled at first. But like you said, once they turned it around, it was like, oh yeah, this team is dominant. I remember this now. This team is the President's Trophy winning team for a reason. You talk about Tampa Bay and you say like they have something intangible. I can put that into words for you as well. It's next guy in line. That team is like, Kuch, Stamkos, Point, Vasilevsky, Hedman, they're not getting it done. Okay, well, put it on Nick Paul's back. Like 2 goals in Game 7, one of them phenomenal. I was
series.
like in awe watching that goal and like just love the guy. We all love Nick Paul.
Dude, Nick Paul, even though his major impact was in Game 7, all series long, he was just series. A dominant force. Like, that is a sick ad, like, by Julien Brisebois.
Yeah. Oh, Nick Paul's not getting it done? Okay, Ross Colton will do it. You did it last year. Like, there's just the next guy in line will always step up on Tampa Bay, and it's all about that depth. All about the guys they bring in. 2 years ago, we're talking about Yanni Gourde. Last series, we're talking about Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow and guys like that. It's like, or Patty Maroon a few years ago. It's just always the next guy in line. Corey Perry can score big goals. It's a stupid team. Like, it's so good. So, yeah, that does scare me. That being said, I think that Florida has a lot of that too. A lot of depth and a lot of guys that will get it done. Plus, their top dogs are playing like top dogs. So, it's good.
One thing I'll say, Harp, on this series, yeah. One thing I'll say is I think it could really come down to coaching, because John Cooper is one of the best coaches in the NHL, and you've got an inexperienced guy behind the bench in Florida. Not saying he's a bad coach, but John Cooper is all time, so that could be a deciding factor there.
Definitely, and I think with Tampa Bay, the health of Braden Point is a bit of a question mark, right? Yeah. I mean, we saw him go down awkwardly in Game 7 and tried to take a stride and come back after that, but really struggled. But again, like Case said, they're just such a deep team, next guy up, and like, again, that third line is a huge factor for them, and it's going to be a factor the rest of the way. They completely replaced the third line, and again, it's a huge factor for them. And I just wanted to say quickly, about Nick Paul. Like, what a story. This is a guy who worked his ass off in the minors. He was a great player in the American Hockey League. We had David Foote on early on when we had the podcast going, and of course he covers the Belleville Senators, and I think we asked him the question, like, who's sort of that one guy on the Senators or in the AHL in general that you're surprised isn't in the in the NHL? And he said Nick Paul. He's so big, he's so strong, such a great player, and a career season with the Ottawa Senators. He goes to Tampa Bay at the deadline, and he was one of the X factors in Game 7. So again, that third line for Tampa Bay, and they've got the best goalie on the planet as well.
Such a great motor for a guy of that size in Nick Paul.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, exactly. And like, just, he didn't score on the play, but just when he was driving to the net, crashed into Campbell, like, he's just, he was a beast that game. So anyway, can't count out the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I like the Panthers too, man. And it'd be something if Carter Verhaeghe could be an impact player in this series as well, because he's a former Tampa Bay Lightning. So there we go. All right. So for the East, we've got Carolina and a clean sweep for the Hurricanes winning that series against the Rangers. And then Case and I taking Florida. Chad, you're sticking with Tampa Bay. So there we go. Moving on to the West now. We'll go to the St. Louis Blues, who took out the Minnesota Wild in 6 games and really, handled Minnesota quite easily in Game 6. Cam Talbot coming in for that one, and the Blues win that one 5-1 to move on to round 2. Of course, they're the 2019 Stanley Cup champions, and they'll be up against the Colorado Avalanche, who have had a lot of time off in between rounds 1 and 2. They took out the Nashville Predators easily in 4 games, a clean sweep for the Avs. And so, guys, I really want to take Colorado, but I like what you said, Case. I think there's something to sticking and honoring your original playoff bracket. And I really like the Blues right now. So I'm going to take St. Louis in 7 games, because I did have Minnesota winning that series and beating Colorado to go to the Western Conference Finals. So in honor of my original bracket, I will take the Blues. And in that case, it's going to be 7 games. So what do we think about this series?
Well, I think you absolutely just stole my thunder, because I was going to say the exact same thing. I was going to be like, I had Minnesota going to the end, maybe even beating Florida in the finals, because I thought they're that good of a team. They're that tough, they're that big. They have that work ethic, the culture, everything. But I think everything you can say about Minnesota, you can say about St. Louis now after that series. And they just have some guys that elevate their game in the playoffs. Obviously, Ryan O'Reilly, David Perron is like one of the best players in the league when he's in the playoffs. And, there's a ton of others you can mention. Like Jordan Kyrou is an absolute beast right now. We love Robert Thomas on this podcast. So I actually have to do the same thing as Harper, stick with my original love of Minnesota. Plus, Colorado, no adversity all year long. Major favorite for officiating, no adversity in the first round, a sweep. They're like, you can say they're rolling, but to me, it's just they haven't seen any adversity. I'm going to keep using that word because I think it explains it the best. And for that reason, I think they're going to get shocked by the St. Louis Blues in 6 games.
Wow. Let me tell you
Take
guys.
That, Harper, 1 up.
Let me tell you guys why you're wrong and why Colorado is going to win in 6 games. Right. And by the way, Case, I like your point about adversity because I feel the same way, and I've been saying the same thing about the Maple Leafs, that adversity is a good thing because once you overcome it, then you're just rolling. And you're right, Colorado really hasn't had any adversity, but I think it's just because they're the best team in the league by a long shot. They're really, really good, guys. And if I look at, how I like to do this, where I look at the forwards, defense, and goalies, in my opinion, Colorado it has a clean sweep there. I think they have better forwards, better defense, better goaltending. And, it might not be by a lot because St. Louis is good. And I actually did pick St. Louis in the first round to win. And they did. They surprised a lot of people, but I liked St. Louis from the start, even though I didn't like them at the start of the season. I liked their chances against Minnesota. But Case, I thought it was funny how you said, you can say a lot of the same things about St. Louis that you can about Minnesota. And I'm going to keep going with that because one thing you can say about St. Louis now that you could say again about the Wild in the first round is there could be a controversy in net, and there could be the saying of, you should have played the other guy. And, the St. Louis Blues started Ville Husso, and it didn't go so well. Jordan Binnington, cup-winning Jordan Binnington in 2019, by the way, came in and he's been playing really well. But what happens if he has a stinker? Then do you go back to Husso, who had a really incredible season this year, or do you stick with Binnington? I think there's just a lot of questions, and I just hate seeing that in the playoffs. It's not my thing. I think you need a starting goalie to just carry the load. Even though I like both of those guys, and they've both been, Husso was really good in the regular season. Binnington's been good in the playoffs so far. I just think there's no way that they're going to be able to shake Colorado. I've got Colorado in 6 games. Money Puck has them at 70%. I just think that Like they didn't even have to try against Nashville. It was that easy for them, guys. They're such a good team, and if they lose, I will be absolutely shocked.
I've been saying the same thing about Colorado the last 3 years, and they're that good of a team. I think they're going to the finals. And they don't do it every single year. And you know what I wasn't saying about St. Louis in 2019 is they're a good team and they're going to go to the finals. No one saw that coming. And I think they're better than they were in 2019. So,
I agree.
I mean, I love Colorado. Like throughout the season, obviously they're good. Like I say there's no adversity, but they're also just a really good hockey team. But I think I've got to shake things up. I got to keep people on their toes, Harp and I, on this one. And I got to stick with my guns and go with St. Louis. It'll be a lot more entertaining, honestly, if you ask me. And this is the series in the West that I'm actually not that interested in the end. I'll probably have the TV glued to Calgary and Edmonton, Battle of Alberta, because they'll be playing at the same time. And, if I can not fall asleep, then that's going to be the one I'm watching.
That's the key.
Yeah, well, and I think the big question with the Avs is how do they respond when something goes wrong, right? Like we saw the injury to Darcy Kemper. It looks like he's going to be okay. But when I saw that, I just was like, classic, like big injury, like he's done, he's finished, and things are, Colorado's going to win the series, but then he's going to be out and things are going to fall apart. So I don't know. I'm kind of waiting for something to go wrong for the Avalanche and for them not to be able to respond. And so we'll have to see. I like the Avalanche, but honoring my original bracket and also really liking the St. Louis Blues and their balanced attack. Again, I think Pavel Buchnevich was a huge add for them and has made a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko even better this season. I really like St. Louis.
Yeah, for Colorado, like we talked about adversity, and just last point on that, maybe it's the fact that they haven't been able to get over the hump of the second round. And maybe this is the year. And that was the adversity in the past. They've had a ton of injuries in the past. A couple years ago, I think it was in the bubble where they had Michael Hutchinson starting like 2 or 3 playoff games for them. So, maybe this is the year. I think they're deep in every position. And, I just can't go against them.
I agree, but with that second round hump and the same thing I talked about with Florida and Toronto, if they have that in their mind and they give up a game at home to St. Louis, I think that's the end of them. If they lose one of these first 2 games, then it's going to be downhill from there.
We'll have to see. All right, Case, you and I have got St. Louis. Chad, you're taking the Avs. So let's move on to the second and final series in the West and the last series that we're going to talk about in round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Chad, you mentioned the Battle of Florida being what will be the best, most exciting series, and it's a shame that one of those 2 teams has to be eliminated in round 2. That is exactly how I feel about these 2 teams and about this series. I am so excited for the Battle of Alberta in the second round. I said it on the last pod. What a treat this would be, and this is the series that I'm going to be glued to. I know I've got the early mornings, guys, and all that, but I'm going to be napping in the afternoons so that I can stay up.
Sorry, what's changing?
And the only thing changing is that I'm napping to watch a 10 o'clock game. But anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing all series long, and I'm going to be absolutely glued to the Battle of Alberta. You've got Johnny Gaudreau scoring the overtime winner in Game 7, and the Calgary Flames, they're my Stanley Cup winner, and you've got the Edmonton Oilers, Connor McDavid, an incredible first round, 14 points in 7 games, scores the big goal in the 2-0 win in Game 7 over the LA Kings, and we've got the Battle of Alberta in round 2. So honoring my bracket and how much I like the Calgary Flames, I've got them going to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Florida Panthers. I'm taking the Flames in 7 games. I think this is going to be an absolute war. So what do we think?
Yeah, obviously this is the series I can't wait to watch. talk about hate. It's going to be so good. I think that's going to be a big component of it, though, is it's all going to come down to what team can play that gritty game, can play that rivalry game and not lose their head. If it seems like to me, usually Matthew Tkachuk gets sucked into doing stupid shit with Zach Kassian, and it's like, that's a trade I want to make every single time. He was doing it with Klingberg last series. So if I'm Zach Kassian, the first thing I'm doing is rifling an elbow at Matthew Tkachuk right away. I had a hard time with this series too. I started looking at Calgary and I started thinking, man, the fact that they had to push it so deep with Dallas, a team that we didn't even think should have made the playoffs, that kind of scares me. They did face some hot goaltending, but they also just weren't the dominant team they've been all season. I'm like, well, if they struggled against Dallas like that, what's going to happen in the second round? Then I went, wait. Edmonton struggled against the Los Angeles Kings. Obviously, I love the Kings, but we expected that series to be quick. I said they put up a fight. Well, they did. They went to Game 7 as well. So that threw a wrench in my whole strategy here, and I started having troubles again. And it's going to be a game time decision who I pick here. But honestly, I think I've got to go with the Edmonton Oilers in this series, and I'm going to take them once again in 6 games. I think the difference maker this year that has me taking Edmonton is Connor McDavid so far in the series. He's not messing around. And when he's stepping up this big, I think it's just going to be a cruise to the conference finals for these guys, because he wants this bad, and I think more so than anyone in the playoffs. So I guess I said it for the Rangers, but I'm going to say it for McDavid. This phrase has been said before, but Connor McDavid in 6.
Yeah, he had that press conference after a loss where he had the long face. He was pouting. He was a bit grumpy. He was very short with the reporters. And I think this was after like game 2 or 3 whenever they lost. And from there, he just absolutely took off. He changed his mindset. I mean, it's not like he was bad before then, but it was just like, okay, this isn't going to come easy. Let me dig in and take over. And that's what he's done. He's been the best player in the world, for the last 5 years plus. And he's been the best player in the playoffs so far. So I could absolutely see Connor McDavid willing the Edmonton Oilers to a win here. But in the spirit of honoring our original brackets, I'm going to have to go with Calgary in 7 games. When I look at the forwards, the forward groups here, you've got 4 of the top 8 scorers in the NHL going head to head in this series, which is going to be incredible. Their forwards, they both have some decent depth as well. I'm going to call that a draw. I think it's even. When I look at the back end, actually, I'll go goaltending first. When you look at goaltending, again, you've got Jacob Markstrom, who was incredible all year, and you've got Mike Smith, who was the story of the end of the season. Both have been absolutely unbelievable. So I think I'm going to have to give it a draw right there. I would say if I'm building a team, I want Jacob Markstrom. But right now, if we're just looking at who's been playing really well, it's Mike Smith, guys. Like, he's been extremely good, as funny as it is for me to say that, because the guy's like 40 and we rag on him all the time. But he's been so good, and that's been the story so far for Edmonton. And then when I look at their D, it's Calgary by a mile. And we know this. This is the problem with the Oilers. They don't have a solid defense group, even though Woodcroft has found a way to make these top 6 guys on the back end in Edmonton, more useful than maybe they would have been before the coaching change, or were before the coaching change. So even though Calgary for sure has better defense, top to bottom, like Case, this, we look at top pairings in the NHL in terms of expected goals for and against, and it's always Calgary. It's every pairing on Calgary. It's fantastic. So even saying all of that, guys, I think this is going to be the absolute closest series, and it might be as fun, if not more fun, to watch for me than the Battle of Florida as well. Money Puck's got Calgary at 56%. To honor my bracket, to sum up, Calgary in 7 games, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, this is one that I actually went against my bracket on because I had Calgary, Minnesota in the conference finals. But there's just so many things building up to this series that I had to go with my gut. Like normally I would be taking Calgary here, but my gut was telling me Edmonton. It's telling me McDavid. It's telling me Tkachuk being too worried about Zach Kassian all series. It's storyline. It's Mike Smith standing on his head. It's guys like finally realizing, okay, we've made it through this first round. We're the Edmonton friggin' Oilers. We got two of the best players in the league, and one of them is having the best playoff series in however many years. Like he's a lock for a Conn Smythe if they go to the finals. So it's like
we got two of the best players in the league, and one is pissed.
yeah, exactly. Like I wouldn't even be talking to McDavid in the dressing room right now. I'd just be like, keep the mojo, don't change your underwear, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Like that's been fun to watch. And I think ultimately Calgary's the better team in this series, but not always does the better team win. And I think that's the case here. And I think Edmonton takes it. And if they go to game 7, then Calgary wins. So they've got to do it in 6. That crowd is going to be electric in game 7.
Yeah. Oh, it sure was on Sunday night against Dallas. And the one thing I wonder about the Oilers, too, is the health of Leon Draisaitl, because obviously he's not right, guys. He's hurting. You know, he's obviously going to sit there and say, I'm fine, like he did and everything. But, you know, he's obviously not right. But Connor McDavid's just been unbelievable, and he'll take them as far as he can take them. But I do think Calgary is the all-around better team. I like the Flames. I like the way they're coached. I mean, Daryl Sutter's sound bites are just fantastic, and he's won before. Like he gets the best out of his players, but I just can't wait for this series. It's the one that I'm going to be just absolutely glued to, even though every game's at 10 o'clock at night, but it's going to be awesome.
Let me say this on Sutter. If I'm going to pick one thing on the podcast that I've been the most wrong about, I mean, there's a bunch to choose from, but criticizing the Daryl Sutter hiring, I'll say right now, flag it, number one, that's the worst take I've ever had, because he has proved me wrong every step of the way. He took this team from mediocrity to a Stanley Cup contender in a matter of a season, really. And he's been that good. I don't know how he does it, but he's able to get players to buy into a system that they may otherwise not have wanted to play. So whatever he does in the locker room, it's been working, and I'll say right now, I'll own it. I'll be a man and say it. That is my worst take I've ever had on the podcast.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I will agree to disagree.
I've had some bad ones too, but that was bad.
God.
Seattle being a playoff team was definitely one of them.
Hey, I stand by that if they got average goaltending.
Okay. We won't get back into that. We'll stick to actual playoff conversation.
And you know what? I got to give a nod to Jay Woodcroft, too. I mentioned Daryl Sutter, but Woodcroft, to come up from the American Hockey League and immediately have an impact on the Oilers to just, change their style and make them better defensively and just get the most out of guys and just a great guy too. Like after the series with the Kings, guys, before I talk about our team and all that, want to take a minute to congratulate Dustin Brown on a great career. Like he's a great guy. He's been great for this team. And so 2 great coaches, 2 great teams, a wonderful rivalry that's great for the province of Alberta. It's a shame that one of those teams has to go out in the second round, but it's going to be awesome. So there we go. 2 of us taking Calgary, 1 of us taking Edmonton, that being Case. And there we go. The remaining 8 teams, the 4 playoff series that we have in round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Looking forward to it. Enjoy this night off because the craziness is back up and running starting Tuesday night. So enjoy it. We'll talk to you again next week. And don't forget, we have our merch still available at boysinthebooth.com. So get your swag for summer 2022. Get yourself set up. And again, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening.
This has been another episode of Boys in the Booth with Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. New episodes every Monday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Connect with the Boys in the Booth on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Boys in the Booth. Visit boysinthebooth.com for show details, and don't forget, you can become a patron of the podcast for just $1 a month at www.patreon.com/boysinthebooth.